So here's another element to consider and this is why, these studies are all great, but there's so many things that you can't account for.
Agreed.
I think it was Deepak Chopra talks about this really interesting thing that happened with bunnies. I think it was in Ageless Body, Timeless Mind was
Yeah.
the book that he was talking about it. And they were trying to determine they're doing something with cholesterol. And I don't know if it was like testing medications for reducing cholesterol or whatever. But they had all these bunnies in cages, and they were administering doses of cholesterol to them. And they were finding over time that the bunnies in the lower cages had lower cholesterol than the bunnies in the higher cages. And they could not figure out what like what the correlation was. They're all same diet, all that kind of stuff. So it turned out that every night a cleaning woman was coming in, and the bunnies she could reach, she would take out of the cages and pet. So, and they started studying, and he talks about, he's like, if your relationship to eating the ice cream is joy, and you don't overindulge, but you enjoy, you don't feel guilty about eating the ice cream, you feel good about having earned to eat the ice cream, it's going to have less physiological impact than if you're stressing over it. So for someone who stresses over the idea of working out for a full hour, that's going to have it's your exercise causes stress, period. It releases cortisol. There, too much exercise can be damaging. It's why it requires so much recovery. When you're an athlete, you have to pay so much attention to sleep and nutrition because your body is under so much stress in concentrated doses. So if you're less stressed by the idea of snacking your exercise and doing 10-minute chunks, that's going to be great. For some people, they want to get up, they want to get it over with. And so for them, they're going to benefit more from doing that hour because their relationship with it is healthier. So it's why there's so much pushback against diet culture right now, because and actually personal development. They're finding that it's leading to increased amount of depression because people feel so bad about their inability to implement these things, and they're just not good enough to do it, and they keep failing and trying and failing. They're ending up in a worse place than if they just relaxed and were a little more gentle with themselves. So and it's like they've always said that, how do you really determine, like, I know for me, my nutrition is directly linked into my exercise. So the
Yeah.
more consistent I am with my exercise regimen that I enjoy, the likelier I am to make healthy choices with my food. And when I fall off, it's just really easy to just order a pizza. So can you really say that my health benefits correlate directly to exercise when there's a ripple effect of lifestyle choices, and it's hard to get an accurate picture of all of those things in everyone's life when they do these studies? So it's
Well,
interesting stuff, it really is.
which is why they have so many different studies to talk about.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a year and a half long course if you want to hang out with it, and every study has a point. Every study has a purpose, and it's demonstrating something. But the other thing that they talked about is exactly what you just said: the relationship of working out first thing in the morning and then making good nutritional choices the whole rest of the day. There's something that happens there in the human psyche where it
Sure.
just natural, having gone through that the whole rest of the day they have a very high resistance to doing things that are not good to their body. And the same thing is true for people that get an adequate amount of sleep. 7 to 8 hours worth of sleep can be as effective in terms of weight loss as any amount of exercise and dieting. So when I was talking earlier about the 75 hard, to me, that sounds like another form of dieting or another form of self improvement. Do this for a period of time, and at the other end of it, you'll be a better human being. And it's almost like making a decision to be, in an event by a particular date. That in and of itself is enough of a challenge for a human being to like to do the 75 hard, or to set the goals in Noom to lose 50 pounds over the next 6.5 months, doing it a little bit at a time and mindfully setting yourselves up self up, so it's not about excluding the fun stuff or things, or there's no group that you can't have. In other words, it's all about learning how to make moderate choices, doing the thing that works the best for you in an instance. And it's really not, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's, if you choose to do things that are bad for your body on a regular basis, you're going to suffer for it. Okay. I mean, if we taught people that very first thing in all through grammar school, all you have to do is be smart about your choices, learn how to choose wisely, and most of your life is going to go really, really well for you.
I think the thing you said that's so key is you got to figure out what works for you. Like,
Yes.
because it's for me, I absolutely respond best if I have something to train for. So, like the 75-day thing, I would respond incredibly well to that. So it's why I keep finding new ways to compete, and I mean, whether it was martial arts or cycling or running or now obstacle course racing, whatever, something so that I can create a training program that's cyclical where I build to something and then I have permission to relax.
Yeah.
So, the I finished my last race in Jacksonville in February, and that first beer that I'd had in 10 weeks was so delicious.
I'm sure it was.
And I had no desire I didn't want a beer, through the training cycle, and
Right.
then took absolute pleasure and I had a whole week of just eating whatever I wanted, going out to eat and eating fried food and just I didn't overdo it just because I didn't desire a lot of it,
Right.
but I enjoyed, just kind of this break from that routine. But I enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed the actual routine. And
Yeah.
I guess that's, so for each person, like what allows you to find the value in the practices you choose and the lifestyle that you choose. And I think that's where there's so much information. So you've got someone saying, if you're not in the gym 4 days a week, you're a waste of a human being, or if you eat anything processed, if you touch bread, you're a bad person, like uh, I think actually it's funny. I just had a very dear friend who said to me, what did they say? They said they don't have a sweet tooth, they have a wheat tooth. Because they love like bread and pasta and that
Oh
kind
yeah.
of thing. And I thought that was hilarious. And it was like, so to them, they just need to know that. And they said it in such a humorous and lighthearted way and she was saying she has to moderate because she's attracted to those things. So she's just got to be aware of that and be careful, but she
Right.
doesn't resist it either. She just finds a balance that works for her, and she doesn't have to fight with eating a bunch of, like cookies and candy. She's not attracted to that.
Right.
But she has a wheat tooth as opposed to the sweet tooth. So I thought that was really clever.
That is very clever, but I think it is really about knowing yourself,
Yeah.
talking about that. And sometimes it's trial and error. Like you just do something and you're like, oh, okay, that is not for me.
Hmm.
That is, and or whatever, that just didn't make me feel the way I wanted to feel, whether it was energized or whatever, but that didn't put me in a good space. I don't feel good. And oh, that makes me feel really great,
Yeah,
so.
and I think if you're willing to test it and not, I think the other thing that happens is, so someone feels that they desperately need to lose 10 pounds, so they sign on to some program that's saying that they'll achieve that, and now they have all of this hope that it's going to work, and when it doesn't, there's disappointment.
Yeah.
Instead of, let me test this and see how I respond and then use that as information. It's just feedback. It's
Yeah.
not that it failed you or you failed it. It's what you just said, Jan. It's getting in tune with what's actually working for you and and even if it works for 90% of the population, it doesn't, you may be in the 10% that it just doesn't work for. You don't know. So you just have to be willing to test and be okay with, you know, continuing to have to go through many, many tests until you find, the thing that fits who you're trying to be and what you're trying to accomplish.
Right, but I think also is that people have to be willing to ask how they feel. Like I once
Yeah.
had this conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about how when you meet people, if you say, "How do you feel?" They're like, "I feel tired." Like, even just on a deeper level, like they'll say, "I feel tired," and we're like, "Tired's not a feeling," like
Yep.
And so I think getting in touch on a deeper level to like, which I think is for a lot of people is a scary place to be.
Yeah.
And also, people don't necessarily want to be in the 5% where a program doesn't work. I think they feel a little bit like, I think that's for a lot of people, that's an uncomfortable place to be. Is why can't I be with the other 95% that works? Like, why do I have to be the 5% where it doesn't work?
Boy, you just brought us right
Oh
back to
yeah,
community.
I
That
know.
you just
Community,
went full circle to community. Yeah.
100%.
exactly. I planned
That
that.
5% is a real community too.
It
There's
is
Yeah. But if you want to be in the
exactly.
95% community, that's incredibly stressful. You're so right.
nobody's in the 95% community. They're typically, this is really cool. Typically, only 15 to 25% of people actually complete any program that they sign up for.
Mm,
And where you see that they do it the best is where it's a social experience along with whatever it is that they're doing. And I also say there's two other really fundamental, I would say, linchpin concepts for people to bear in mind. Goals are all powerful. Paying attention to them, measuring them, being able to record things on a daily basis that are the daily contributors to accomplishing a goal down the road without having the concern about how you're actually doing working towards that goal. Those two elements right there are what makes most of the people that are in the 15 to 25% successful. They do the daily work. It's a little along the lines of buying the gym card and not going. That was interesting. We had a poof there. You were gone for a second, Ken, and now you're back. But Jan, I got to ask you another question. One of the neat things that I see about the people that are in that group of the can doers, and we lost Ken again, but that's okay. Um, how did you get into being a yoga instructor?
Um, well, it's interesting because I had heard about yoga for so many years.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not quite sure. I mean, I know why I got there, but I'm not quite sure which reason was more. I was a runner
Yep.
and kept on thinking, okay, well, I really should do yoga because I really need to stretch.
Right.
But what really brought me there was more emotional, as I needed much more of a stress management, um, anxiety management kind of tool for myself.
Yeah.
And what always cracked, and I never did it thinking I was ever going to teach. I mean, I took my first teacher training because I wanted to learn more, and I never thought I was going to teach. And then I taught, and I loved it. I was good at it. So I stayed. It's one of the things I do. But that really wasn't why I originally, you know, did it. But what was very interesting to me was as we would sit around a class, it was always so funny to me that you would have all these really type A driven people in class. Like, it would just because it seemed so counter yoga, like, because yoga was all about calmness and about, like, getting in touch with your breath. And then you'd watch all these really, like, driven, very successful people who, like, literally, and I think part of it was it would come to class because if they didn't put it on their schedule, it wasn't gonna happen. Like,
Right.
a lot of schedulers, like, had their, calendar, like, their day blocked out for every second, and would block in that hour for yoga or hour and a half. It's kind of like, okay, got to put it in the schedule.
Yeah.
See that in Tai Chi too. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Tai Chi and Qigong is the same way. Yep.
Yeah.